Hey everyone. Today what we're doing is we're adding on a rain hat for our blink cameras. Now I've got a handful of blinks stationed around my apartment and they're on these little plastic mounts, but what we found out is that they're not actually made to be outdoors. They the way that they're set up is they're actually supposed to be indoor cameras, and they should have an outdoor one coming out sometime soon, and that's fine, but I want to use them outdoors. and and so the way that I've been doing this lately is I've been putting little plastic pieces of foil kind of hanging over the top of the ones that are not sheltered under my apartment porch roof. But it looks pretty ghetto, and there's got to be a better way. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a clip here that sits on over the top of this, and then creates a little kind of hat going from left to right to make sure to keep it sheltered. So the first thing I need to do is I need to measure the clip that's actually going to fix this rain hat to the blink. And I'm going to make this in two pieces because making clip-on kind of very snug fits can be kind of tricky. And so I want to make sure to get the clip right, and then from there we'll make the hat, which is going to be probably the easier part of this whole build. So for starters, what we need to do is we need to measure how big these blinks are. It looks like it is 66.07, and there's wide. And I believe it's going to be that on the other side as well. Let's see. Yeah, pretty much the same. All right, so the last thing we need to do is we want to measure this width in the middle here, because the way it goes is that we actually don't want to clip on over the edge, we just want to go in this gap kind of in the middle. So this clip is going to be 13.18. All right, and then actually the last thing I want to do is I'm going to measure from this corner to this corner, because that'll help us get the radius better of these fillets for the corner. And of course, my caliper is getting in the way of itself. So let's take off the back and see. And it's about 83. And I think this is a fantastic measurement, but we'll go for close enough. 83. Great. Alright, so in this first piece here, what we need to do is we need to make this clip that is going to go around the outside of the blink. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this, because I believe the autosave is going to start running once we save this. So I'm going to call this blink rain hat. Alright, now let's actually start drawing. So again, we're going to go to sketch first, and I'm going to press R for rectangle, and draw it on this axis. So what we said was that the overall rectangle was basically 66 millimeters wide and tall. So let's go 66, and tab, 66 again, and try. Okay, so now I've got my rectangle, and what we knew is that the corners here are rounded. And I'm not really sure exactly how rounded, so we're going to go for kind of a guess and check method. So I'm going to press I to go inspect. I'm going to click on these two corners to see how far we are. So it looks like this box right now is 93.38 millimeters corner to corner, and we need to get this down to 83. So what I'll do is I'm going to go to Sketch, Fillet, and I'm going to click all four of these corners here. And now this is defaulted to a 20 millimeter fillet, and I don't know if that's right or not, but let's check. I'm going to press enter. I for measure again. I'm going to go from here to here. That's 64.5. That's about from here to here. Like that. So we click on it, it says on the right, it's kind of hidden, 76.77. All right, we went too far. So let's There we go. 15. All right. Check another line. L for line. Click again. 80. We're getting closer. 15. Let's go to 12. Columns by line. 83.397. I think that's close enough. So this is now the general shape of our blink. And so now, a lot like what we did with the nightstand riser tutorial, if you guys have seen that, is we need to make a border around the outside, because if this is the actual edge, we need to give this some depth that the clip is actually going to clip onto. So I'm going to go for a 3mm border again. And so the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to go R. Actually, let's just kind of eyeball it. That seems good. So we need a clip that's 3mm off. And so the way I'm going to do this is I will go to rectangle, that's construction, and go 3mm off the corner here. Create a rectangle, and goes all the way out here. And this is going to be pretty close. And last thing you need to do is change this from a construction to a normal wall, because again, we don't want this to be a guideline, we want this to be the actual wall. And now, because we have this nice fillet on the corner and we want to make that pretty on the outside as well, let's round these off too. So that's way too much though. About 10 sounds nice. So there we go. So we've got a pretty consistent border. Again, we're going for pretty close and pretty good there. And so I think that looks like it's going to be a reasonable clip. So now the next thing, stop this sketch. We need to make this two-dimensional. We've got the overall box taken care of, and we know that it's about 83mm corner to corner, but we need to make this 13mm wide. So I'm going to go in E for extrude, and click on this outer border. So I've got my sketch here, and right now I can't just put this on by removing the back of the blink and then clipping this on, because then once it's clipped on, we won't actually be able to release the little thumb catch that lets us take this kind of ring off of the blink. And originally what I was going to do is cut out a little kind of notch here for the edge of the ring to, I'm sorry, for the thumb attachment, the thumb slider to be able to be removed. But what I realized is that we don't actually know which direction this hat is going to be oriented. These cameras can pivot in all sorts of ways, and so I might want my hat on this side, or I might want it on this side, or I might want it on this side. And if I lock myself into just having the hat, associated with, kind of anchored with this thumb slider here, then we're going to end up making commitments that we probably don't want to do. So instead, I think what I'm going to do is we're going to cut off some of this extrusion. Now, I think what we'll do is we'll take a line here, from here, all the way over here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this whole area. What that means now is we're going to have this sort of a clip. And so it's going to have a little bit of flex kind of on these edges here, but it's going to go around the corners and be locked in place, but we'll be able to run this on any corner of the blink that we want. Now we could go and trim this and clean it all off, but who knows if we're going to get this right. So I'm going to leave this sketch just like this and update the extrusion so that if we need to make any changes later, it's not going to be a big deal. So I'll go stop sketch, and my extrusion looks the same. I need to double click it. Now we need to tell it what we do and don't want to highlight anymore. And because we drew this line here, this piece is broken into its own kind of section. So I'll click that. And now my extrusion is just that clip that we made. So I like this. I'm going to save it off. We're going to put it into Cura, and we're going to have this as a test print. And then assuming it all goes well, we'll start to add in the hat to give this some extra depth and make sure it's doing its actual job. So I'll save it off. Blink rain hat. I'm going to go to Cura, open my rain hat. Don't need the layer view. And there it is. Now what do I want? Well, layer height is 0.2 millimeters. I don't really care about quality for this. Initial layer height, it's fine. We don't need support, so it doesn't matter if it's checked. And we don't need to worry about adhesion. This is a pretty basic part and a pretty fast print. So I like this. I save it off. I send it over into Octoprint, and we'll be off to the races. All right, print is done. Let's take a look at what we're working with here. Overall, I'd say print quality is pretty awesome. Comes right off. I'll throw it on the floor. All right. So, two things I want to test. First is how is the overall fit and dimensions. And so hopefully we can slide this on. Great. Okay, so first off, I'd say this fits pretty dang well. It's snug, but not overly snug. Now the next piece is when we put this back on, will we be able to clip it around the outside? Heck yeah. Great. All right, now from here, we can take this and start adding a roof probably on one of these edges here. So I like this initial print. It came out well. It clipped on good. Really no complaints. I think it's exactly what I was hoping for. Now the next challenge is actually making the rain hat part of this. And there's a couple different considerations that we have to make. The first is that with this hat, with the overhang, we can't have it overhang too much, because if it's overhanging too much, we're going to end up getting a bunch of glare and kind of lens flare coming through on the video, especially at night. So I don't really know what we're going to do for that. It might have to be a little bit of guess and check, but it is something to keep in mind. And the next thing is that wide here, there's about 30 millimeters that we're going to need to make this wide to cover the full print. I'm sorry, cover the full blink. So this is about 13 millimeters wide, so there's going to be another about 7 on each direction, give or take, to make sure this covers the blink the rest of the way. We'll probably make it a little bit wider on top of that, but the thing to keep in mind is that this is still going to be coming off the wall, and so we can't make it too big because it's probably going to end up running into whatever it's mounted to. With all that in mind, let's see what we can do and get this started. So I'm going to pick this side as where I'm going to build this hat off of, and I'm going to use this plane, and I'm going to create a new sketch. I'm going to right click and say create sketch. And now with this, let's start making some kind of reference lines. I'm going to go to construction. I'm going to go L for line. I'm going to say if this is my middle, I'd say if we want to hang this off the edge a little bit, about that far seems reasonable. 40, let's say 50. And same thing if we wanted to go off. Actually, we'll go off here the other direction, another 50. Now, again, this is 13 millimeters wide. We wanted to get up to 30. Let's say we want to get up to 40, so we've got a little bit of extra coverage on each side. Well, so for the middle here, you see I got that little triangle. We're going to go up 20. And we're going to go down 20. So with that in mind, we want it to go about this far out. We want it to go about this high. So we can add in some more kind of reference marks. And we can do this on the other side as well. Let's see here. So we'll go and bring this L for line again. No, that's not what we want. How long is this line? 13.5 says in the bottom. Great. Well, off the bottom here, let's go 13.5. And how far out was this line? Did we say 50? Another line. 50. Enter. Rectangle from here to here. So not exactly the prettiest thing, but at the end of the day, what we have is two corners of a box that is 50 millimeters wide, perfectly centered, and 20 millimeters deep on each side, 40 millimeters total. So from here, I'm going to go out of construction, and now I'm going to make my actual rectangle. I'm going to go R. I'm going to go from this corner all the way down to this one. So this should be enough at least for a starter. I'll say stop sketch. And again, just with a sketch by itself, we haven't actually done anything. But the thought is that I'm going to extrude this out and make a square up and then fillet it off on the edge to make kind of a birdhouse type look. So let's see how this goes and kind of what works and what doesn't. I'm going to go E again for extrude and select this whole rectangle that we just created. And how about 30 millimeters? That seems good. All right, well, we've got a hat on this, but let's say it looks a little bit ridiculous and doesn't really look a whole lot like a cover. So from here, to make this look a little bit more, again, kind of birdhousey, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Modify and then Chamfer. And I'm going to select the corners on the top here. And I have no idea what I'm going to do as far as how much I'm going to chamfer it, but I can click on this little arrow and drag it down. And now what I can see here is if I take it any further, the chamfers are going to be overlapping each other. And so really, I'm not going to be able to get any more than 20. And with that in mind, we can actually probably shorten this down just a little bit so that we don't have that extra kind of runoff. And probably even a little bit more. Yeah, I still want a little bit of brim here just to have it, but overall I'd say this looks pretty solid. So from here, I'm going to leave this for just a second just to think about if there's anything else that I want. Actually, maybe what I want is I also want a little bit of extra kind of overhang on the back. Again, we need to look out for the front and make sure that it doesn't get too in the way, but the back, we don't really have to worry about that as much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my sketches, again, because right now I can't see any of them. But once I click on the little light bulb, I can see them. And I'm actually going to edit this again. Now I'm going to go rectangle. We're just eyeballing this here. Let's say I want it about that big. Sketch. Now I've got another little line here. And if I go E to extrude, and I bring this down, how much do I want to bring it down? I'm going to bring it down a good amount, really. Now what we can see is we've got an overhang on the left, got an overhang on the right. Sorry, we have an overhang on the back and then an overhang on the top. We don't have left and right. I think that's going to be good for now. I think we can take this and we can print it off, and we're going to end up with a bunch of support in between this and this, which I don't normally love, but I think it's going to be okay for this. It's not a particularly complex part, and we're already going to have more support here for when that's trying to print off the bed. I think it's going to be good at least for another try. So I'm going to save this, export it to Cura, Blink Green Hat V2, open up Cura, open, printing a hat. So it looks like it lined up properly. And you can see we have this overhang. Again, not too happy about that, but it's okay. I'm going to bump up my layer height to 0.2. Again, I don't think this is going to be our final iteration, and so if we can get this going a little bit faster, might as well. We definitely need support here. Build plate adhesion. I don't think we need a brim for this because this flat piece is already going to be sticking pretty well to the bed. And one last thing we can do, just if we're curious to see how these supports are going to go, is I go over to layer view, and I can see first it's going to do that flat layer as well as the start of a little support for the clip. Support, support, support. Starts building up the hat. Clip is done. Rest of the hat. I think that looks good. So we're going to call that good. We'll save it off. We'll print again and see how this all comes. All right, so I got the mount pulled off, and we can see it actually fits pretty close. It's bowed the plastic out a little bit, but not too bad. There's a nubbin, just like this one, but on this inside side right here, that I had to cut off. It really just helps, it appears, to keep the two kind of click together, but I'm not worried about that, and this is going to sit at an angle anyways. So in the next print, I'm going to get a little wider walls. I'm going to shorten this up just a bit so that I can get a different angle here. And then I'm going to make this more thin as well. All right, one new problem uncovered with the back is that we've gone and we're going to thin up this part of the back here so that it, this part of the back, so that it gets in the way less of this. But what if the mount is sitting at 90 degrees? Well, then if it's sitting just like this, the back is going to get in the way. So I think we're going to have to cut out kind of a half circle here to make the clearance for this. So should be an easy fix, but definitely something to get tweaked. All right, so I need to cut that circle in the back for the hinge to make sure it's out of the way. And so the way I'm going to do it is first I want to find that middle to see where we're hinging from. And because the top of this box is the same for the back as it is for this clip, should be easy enough. So first thing I'm going to do, I don't remember how far is it from here to here. 2.923. All right. So now I'm going to go to the back. Make a new sketch. I'm going to go to construction, L for line. Let's find the middle. And then we're going to go down let's see here, equals, we can do math here, 2.923 plus, how far is it to the middle of the blank itself? Let's measure. Looks like it's about 33 plus 33. That didn't work. Well, 33 plus 2.92, we'll call that 36. Good enough. All right, so that is where the general middle of my the blink should be that the mount is starting from. Now, second is how far do we need to clearance this for the hinge? And it looks like it's sticking at about 25 millimeters from that center. So I'm going to go C for circle. I'm going to go from here, and I'm going to say 23 because we want to make sure there's some extra kind of clearance along the way. And actually 23 is the radius, so if I want the diameter, I want, what is that, 46. Okay, so theoretically the hinge should be hinging along that line. All right, the hinge is also 25 wide. So that means if it's from the middle here, there's going to be about 13 millimeters up that this hinge is going to stick. So what I want to do is I'm going to make a line. Start from here, go L. Call it good. Make it all the way through here. All right, so I've drawn this line here, which is how high it's going to pivot. And I've got this circle here, which is the general area that it could be pivoting. So I think what I'm going to do is actually just remove this area and this area. And instead we're going to leave this middle ground and everything up top. And that's going to be where our back is kind of supporting. It's not going to be the perfect coverage, but I think it's going to be still pretty good while not getting in the way of this hinge and how it's supposed to be going. So I'm going to stop sketch. And all right, so we're going to go E for extrude, click on this guy and this guy. There's a prettier way to do this, but in this case we'll just go make it -5. And now we've got it. So a little bit of my back has been cut out or a little bit of my side. So I'm actually going to bring that down just a little bit too, so that I don't have this weird kind of overhang. Let's see here, where was that? That was this. Double click, edit, bring that up to about there. All right, now that's pretty close. We'll call that good. And now we've got this with less of a back, but this is actually going to be able to use the hinge now, so this is going to be much more functional. So I'll save this off. We'll print from there. So the print is done, and the version 3 looks fantastic. The print quality is really good. Supports came off clean, and I think it's got a nice balance of being able to provide extra cover without getting in the way. And so the way this works is if we take our camera and we click it into place, then that's all good to go. Again, the back piece sits in between. We've got a little bit of extra flap here just to protect it. But then the most important thing is that this piece can hinge around. So no matter what angle we're running here, we're going to be able to mount this and still give it the hat that it needs. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. I'll put the information about the printer and the setup and the file so you can download this in the description. And if you like this, please subscribe and stay tuned for more videos.